Before we start, I want to kindly thank anyone that's bought us a cuppa since the last video. It's always appreciated. Warm February days when you can sit around, relax and read a book and use your bookmark full of Bavarian beauties. My word, I wonder what that book's about. John Christopher's The Little People from 1966. Will you two behave? As I was saying, in it, a gorgeous secretary inherits an Irish castle from a distant relative and converts it into a B&B to show her patronising lawyer / fiancé that she can stand on her own. Feminism. On the opening weekend, the house is full of guests, an Irish dreamboat alcoholic, two bickering Americans and a hot-trot teenage daughter, and a married couple who met in a concentration camp, where he was a guard and she was a prisoner. But some uninvited guests are lurking in the basement. The Gestapo Corns. The Gestapo Corns live in the dark, battling their ancient rat enemies with teeny bullwhips. Shortly after we meet them, the author lets us know that these are not just any Nazi leprechauns. These are psychic Nazi leprechauns who enjoy S&M, are covered with scars from pain and pleasure, were trained as sex slaves of full-sized human men, and are actually stunted fetuses taken from Jewish concentration camp victims. And one of them is, of course, named Adolf. Yes, it's National Book Week, and National Book Day is on the 5th of March, when people dress up, send their kids to school as their favourite characters. It's probably best you don't dress your kid up as a Gestapo corn, which is of course a very, how do we put this, propaganda piece from 1966, because of course you can't have the people from 1945 Germany depicted as anything but people who enjoy S&M and doing horrible experiments. They tried to warn us. That's enough of that book. However, when you're talking about the most famous evil person in the world, it almost brings to mind the most famous evil person in the fictional world, Dracula, who, according to a theory, may be based on something not far away from the Gestapo Corns. Let's have a look. Here's me outside talking about it because the sun's out.
Oh, you cunt.
Yes, it started raining the minute I put my coat and shoes on, so here we are. These things happen. Anyway, where were we? Yes, is Dracula based on anti-Semitic tropes? We need to go back to 1897, when we ruled a quarter of the world. Our navy dominated the sea, and our empire stretched from India, sadly, to Africa, also sadly. But then, in the pages of a new Gothic novel, something ancient and foreign began to move westward. Listen to them, the children of the night, what music they make. So speaks Count Dracula, aristocrat, predator, and an invader. But what did he represent to late Victorian readers? Among the many interpretations of Dracula, alongside it being about disease and sexual liberation, the main one, as I mentioned about 30 seconds ago, but it was based on our closest ally. But then we still need to go back a bit further to 1881, when Alexander II of Russia was assassinated, and in the violent backlash that followed, Jews were scapegoated across the Russian Empire. Pogroms, brutal anti-Jewish riots erupted throughout the Pale of the Settlement. The May Laws of 1882 imposed harsh restrictions on them,
For no reason at all.
limiting residence, restricting property ownership, and strangling their economic, what shall we say, prowess. So hundreds and thousands of them fled westwards. A lot of them went to America, and some came to Britain, especially London's East End, where the Krays were. There is a connection there. Newspapers describe their arrival as a flood or a swarm. It almost reads like the papers of today, because funny enough, people aren't fond of foreigners coming into their country, regardless of the country that it is, and especially when people are arriving after fleeing from doing some very naughty things.
Allegedly.
16 years later, the book Dracula appears, and in it a foreign nobleman meticulously prepares his migration into England. Jonathan Harker observes the Count's study in English life. He evidently wished to leave no corner unexplored, and Dracula himself explained his motive. I long to go through the crowded streets of your mighty London, to share its life, its change, and its death. My, Bram Stoker really was a fortune teller. But what about the visual clues? Well, his face was very strong, bushy eyebrows that almost met over the nose, the mouth, fixed and rather cruel looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth. The palms of his hands were hairy. The soil that he slept in had a strange smell to it, and of course there is another clue, the long, aquiline nose.
Jewish. Still, allegedly.
Now this was around the time Victorians were very adept at racial science and obsessively catalogued racial types, using phenotypes, so anti-Semitic caricatures around the time frequently exaggerated hooked noses, heavy brows and predatory expressions. Some scholars argue that Stoker's description aligns uncomfortably with the visual stereotypes of Eastern European Jews common in 19th century media. Of course, the other big clue is blood, because as we know, that's how Dracula gets about and keeps alive, by feeding on the blood. Lucy Westerer's transformation is described with horror. There was something diabolically sweet in her tones, her eyes seem to throw out sparks of hellfire, and after she gets bitten, she turns into a slag, and Dracula forces Mina to drink his blood. Now this types into the old blood libel theory, which of course isn't true at all, and not based on the fact that there's historical precedents of Jewish people sucking the blood, or taking the blood I should say, out of non-Jews, which of course is just an anti-Semitic trope, however recreated via Dracula. Now of course, you've got the look of Dracula, the fact he likes people's blood, surely that's it. Well no, he does travel around with a chest of gold coins which were probably clipped, but he also buys a lot of property, however not himself, he gets Jonathan Harker to do it for him, which carries on the old anti-Semitic trope that they use intermediaries and act as puppet masters for people doing things on their behalf, which of course is never true. Now the last point is the cross, which Dracula clearly doesn't like. Now why would he not like the cross? Are there any other people that don't like the sign of the cross? Let me think. The Count's face suddenly became distorted with fury and he made a grab at the crucifix. Later, the moment he saw the crucifix, he recoiled. Of course, in Christian theology, the vampire's fear of the cross reflects his opposition to Christ, who, as we know, is burning in a vat of whatever, according to another set of people. At the moment, all this evidence is very compelling, but of course it could all just be complete nonsense. But there's also another element to it as well. Late Victorian anti-Semitic propaganda sometimes portrayed Jewish men as corrupters of Christian women, so there was a fear of racist and sexual mixing. Imagine that. Dracula's predation centres on English womenhood, and thus, when he bites them, turning them into whores, which is nothing at all to do with what happens nowadays with the telly and social media. It's all just one big trope. Let me know what you think in the comments. I didn't write the fucking book, don't come at me. Now if you don't want to send your kid in as someone dressed as a Gestapo corn or Dracula, there are plenty of other books for World Book Day with characters they can dress up as, such as The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare, and they can dress up as, Shylock, a moneylender obsessed with contracts and flesh. Or perhaps an old classic by Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist. They can go as Fagin, a criminal mastermind and corrupter of children. Or perhaps The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and they can go as Maya Wolfsheim, a gambler and a fixer. Or perhaps even The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, and they can go as Robert Cohn, who is socially awkward, emotionally needed, and an outsider to the Anglo-American expatriate group. or perhaps go all in with the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, specifically The Prioress's Tale, which recounts a blood libel story in which the chosen ones murder a Christian child. So many choices. Of course, I don't endorse anything that comes from this, because it's just not nice not being nice, is it? Anyway, moving on quickly, that's enough for today. Until next time, ta-ta for now, and remember, if you buy a castle, check in the cellar for some Gestapo corns. Get them to work.
For no reason at all.
If you enjoyed this video or thought it's like less shit than all the others, you can always buy us a Cuppa on Ko-fi. The link is in the description below, and thank you in advance if you do.